What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we get to talk about the dark day that it really was for Xbox, for the industry. You know, it's not a console warrior thing, and there's been plenty of, great takes, as you would come to expect from Twitter, from these just losers that all they do is make it out to be, one side versus another. This is a day that 1,900 people lost their jobs, right? So let me just first say, it's just a public service thing. Man, I hope that these people land on their feet. I hope that, and we talked about this, in past videos. It's different if a studio, say, is just consistently making complete garbage and they have no idea what they're doing. There can be situations where it's like, okay, well, what do you expect to happen? I think a lot of these people, very talented people, and you hope just as a humanity thing that they land on their feet, that they don't go starving, and, they can keep their rent and their home and all that kind of stuff. You hope for the best for these people. So that I want to lead with that, right? Because that is, I think, the most important thing. The thing that, of course, you spend so much talking about is why. Why are we put in this situation? Why is this happening? And I got some ideas, and I got some, takes, I guess, on the popular theories that we've seen online. I just wanted to throw in there in the beginning. You hope everybody, lands on their feet. There's job openings and opportunities across the industry, but when you have like thousands of people being fired all at one time, and, teams here and there, they have 10 spots, they have 7 spots, they have 15, they have 2. Those spots would actually fill up rather quickly, and there's probably not enough spots, right? As people are pointing out, so far this year is almost as bad as the entirety of last year. I believe the stat is 60%. The entire number of people that were fired last year, we've done 60% of that at the end of January. We're not even done with January. So is it going to get worse? Yes. I think this is going to be the worst year for this stuff. Now, there's talk of like, well, why do you do it in January? You got like investor meetings and stuff, and this is going to make potentially companies look good, which is disgusting. But, there's business reasons why you do stuff so early in the year. So it's possible that it calms down, and then maybe 2-3 months later, you get hit again. Maybe like the end of every quarter, beginning of every quarter, right? Depending on how it's structured, that's maybe where you see it at its worst. But you hope it calms down. But I think the reality of the situation, I do believe it's my prediction. I actually said this last year. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And, it definitely has gotten worse, and I think you still got a little bit more to go. Now, again, this does lead into why, but I do think it's going to get worse throughout this year, not just for Xbox, for the industry. I think there's going to be more losses, more layoffs, more firings than there were last year. And you hope, and I think that this is the worst that it gets. And then you rebound, or at least you just don't fire as many people next year, and maybe you start to kind of build back. That is the hope, at least from me. But now let's talk about why. Okay, so from, this Xbox thing. Well, there's a lot of hot takes, going around on this. I would say a few things, okay? One thing, I guess, to address is that whole, remember how a few weeks ago it was said that, Microsoft is basically the most valued company on the face of the earth, right? So they've reached number one. They were kind of battling between number one and number two, and they're valued at like $3 trillion or, whatever the heck it is. I don't think that has anything to do with it, right? Because you have people saying, well, the company that has the most value, on planet Earth, and they're losing all of these people. A lot of those things, I think, are just more kind of, yes, there's like business practices that gets them there, but I think that's more like show-offy things. Also, the gaming division of Microsoft is very small. Like, it accounts for a very small percentage of employees, and it also accounts for a very small percentage of earnings, right? There was a time where they were lagging behind massively, and I feel like, I don't want to make up stories, but I feel like there were years that they actually, were costing money, the gaming division, rather than making money. So again, is there business practices we can talk about and all? Yes, and we will as this video goes on. But that part of it, the whole, they're valued at 3, whatever, and that you still do all of this, I don't think one means the other, like they're all that combined. What I would say, though, my whole hot take would be the acquisition. Now, I was in support of it in the sense of this is going to happen. The industry's going to get eaten up, okay? We've talked about it so many times over the past 2-3 years. All of these companies are going to get bought. Who do you want them to get bought by, right? Ultimately, they're going to be bought by somebody. If this is the way it's going to go, I don't like it. I don't like it being like 5, 6, 7 publishers and that's it on planet Earth. But honestly, in the next decade, that's what it's going to be. So if anybody's going to buy them, it might as well, can Microsoft do it? I think they can. Would I prefer them over like a Tencent? Absolutely. Would I prefer them over like an Embracer? Not that Embracer would actually do it, but yeah, I would want that, right? So, the tough thing is, I would say, well, why would you do an acquisition that is 69 or 68, whatever it is, $billion to then have to fire almost 2,000 employees? Now, the tricky thing is literally why. Why did they have to do it? They may have had to do it because of the purchase, right? A lot of what's been going online, whether you like it or don't, but just, a popular theory, that's presented itself, is redundancies. Now, this is a real thing, and this is not to make light of people losing their jobs, but this maybe even goes to management. If you want to blame somebody, who do you blame? Well, here's what I honestly do believe has happened, okay? You bring in thousands and thousands, actually 10,000. I believe Activision is pretty close to that or somewhere around that. You bring in so many people, okay? You do that. And you already have a bunch of people in your gaming division. You are bound to have the same job be filled by multiple people. And now this is a massive scale. You might have a position that needs 50 people and you have 95. You might have a position that needs 100 and you have 172. So I'm not saying like, okay, it's one job and you have like 5 people doing it. You have one job and you have 500 people doing it. It's a huge scale, right? But that is what's happened. And, I talked about this, even in past videos, like that is a real thing. When you have the situation we had back in 2020, working from home and all that jazz, in the tech industry and the gaming industry, you did have a hiring spree. There was a lot of people being hired, and companies did hire the same people, or multiple people, for the same job. That's what happened. Is that the only reason why you fire, 1,900 people? No. But I do think that's a really big part of it, because you still have that lingering effect, and we are seeing that across the industry on top of other reasons. It's not just that reason, but I do think it is one reason. You have redundancies. A lot of these jobs have been filled by too many people, okay? Now, again, is that the people's fault? No, I'm not trying to make it seem like, Joe Schmo that got fired today on Activision, it was their fault. No, it's the management. You go back to 2020, 2021, the people that made those decisions, they're the ones that should be in trouble right now. Maybe they should be fired. Maybe they should just, have accountability. It shouldn't be the people that you brought in. Ultimately, just don't hire them in the first place then. That honestly is my, it's very boiled down, I feel like. I think I got to the point on that more than anything else in this video. So in terms of that one angle, that's really all I have to say. I do think there were redundancies. You unload something so massive and you have so many thousands of people joining in, you are going to have jobs that are filled with too many people. Now, does that get you to 1,900? No. Couple other things. One thing I definitely want to spend some time talking about. It's a rumor, I suppose, but I really don't think it is, right? It came from Jez Corden, and he had reported that basically it's the physical division of Xbox. So these are people, an entire division, that specialize and focus on bringing Xbox games physically, okay? Now, he did say that it's possible they just kind of contract out, right? Find other people to do it that's not their own, all this jazz. It doesn't mean that they're exiting the physical space completely. I would like to call very much BS on that one, and again, spend just a few minutes talking about this. Now, is that 1,900 people? No, maybe a couple hundred. And that, you could say, well, again, what are the reasons? Why would you do it? Economy, games cost a lot of money. Maybe the margin of profit that they're making is not enough. Bad management from the hiring stuff. Bad management just in general. Maybe the acquisition wasn't a good idea. There's all of these possibilities. One that you can say, I guess, for sure, if this is real, which, these people are saying their jobs as they're being fired, right? All on Twitter, all on X or whatever, saying hey, I worked here, we got laid off. Hey, I did this, my entire team got laid off, right? You're seeing those stories. So I do think this is true. This is a decision. This is a, very clear, find the person that has decided to do this, and that would be the person that caused all of this, to happen for those people, right? For the physical thing. Let me just throw in, we always talk about this stuff. I have an entire third channel podcast now, Back to the Past. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to check it out. I talk about retro games. I love, I've collected at this point, oh my God, maybe like 170 physical games over to my left over here. I'm big into it, and we have made multiple videos talking about it, so I won't spend forever. But this is the digital future, all digital, no physical. Again, like, I'll give Jez Corden a little bit. I feel like it's just trying to like soften the blow of people that are going to come after them for, hey, why are you ditching physical? But that's exactly what they're doing. They're ditching physical. The leaked Xbox console, the refresh of the Series X that's going to come out 2-3, whenever it happens, 2-3 years, it doesn't have a disc. It was already leaked, right? That was part of the court case. Remember, I think it was on the court side of things. They published all those documents. We got all those Bethesda games that we weren't supposed to know about. We got the literal look of the next Xbox console. It looks like a bigger, like, Echo kind of thing. No disc. So it's not surprising. That's the thing. It's not surprising that those people lost their jobs. Now, is that a good thing? No, absolutely not. But it's not surprising, and maybe they should have seen it coming. You could see the writing on the walls and say, hey, looks like this company isn't really in support. And this is, like, I'm talking about it for Xbox. We've talked about it for Ubisoft. We talked about it for EA. All of these. It's not just an Xbox thing. It affects them directly today because you fired, however many people because of it, hence why we're talking about this video. But it's not just an Xbox problem. It's literally what I said, the all-digital, kind of future. So not shocking, not something I want. Again, a whole channel, dedicated to talking about older games. It sucks. It absolutely sucks, and we knew the next console wasn't going to, and for those that paid attention, I guess, we knew it wasn't going to have a disc drive. Now they don't even have the freaking division of people to put it on discs in the first place. So clearly they're done. They're done. Are they the only ones that are done? No. Like, Sony's going to follow them. Nintendo might not. Like, we'll see. But obviously all these different publishers, you're seeing loads of games being digital only. More and more and more. Like, every month, I always mention it in a video, right? But technically, or specifically, I should say, for Xbox, we just talked about this with Hellblade, right? Hellblade 2 comes out in May. $50, so it got slashed in price just like Alan Wake did, and that was kind of the excuse they used, that, hey, it's cheaper, but it's only digital, and Hellblade 2 is doing that. So again, this is an Xbox video, we're talking about it. That should have been a sign. So we'll see, like, does Avowed get a disc? I hope so, I imagine so, but, we'll see about the games really in the future, because there's going to be less and less of them. And then, I'm trying to nail the popular theories that I've seen. There's definitely the people talking about it as, like, console warrior kind of stuff. But the only other thing is, like, management. We talked about, I guess, from, like, the hiring stuff, redundancy kind of point of view. What about just, like, management in general? Well, it does go to, like, I don't want to make it bigger than it is without fully knowing, right? And that's a tough thing with this, because, you got Phil Spencer's email and all this jazz. It doesn't go into high specifics, of why you're doing it. So I don't want to make a huge deal out of something that maybe is not all that impactful, but maybe we could reach for, well, we talk about gaming budgets all the time, and, Sony with Insomniac, right? Like, that was all leaked, and so we got kind of a firsthand, look at that. But for Xbox, like, there's some very expensive Xbox games as well. And, Game Pass has continued to climb, but it's not climbing massively. There does seem to be, and much like even, like, Netflix and Disney Plus are kind of realizing, there is a peak. There's a ceiling to where these subscription services go. At least for Xbox, I think what they're finding is for console, right? It seems to be what a lot of the statistics and kind of these things being done behind the scenes where people show all these numbers, right? That seems to be what's shown, that there is a cap to the people that are willing to do subscriptions, and for PlayStation Plus too, on console. And hence why Xbox, their plan is to play anywhere, right? Because, well, you may cap it on console, but you have a phone, you have a computer, you have all sorts of stuff that you can maybe do Game Pass through those things, right? So, could it be Game Pass? Can it be that we talk about Insomniac and all that? Well, Halo Infinite, Halo Infinite costs like $400 or $500 million to make, and that's like a true figure. So that costs a lot of money. Did they make $500 million back from that? Highly doubt it. No, I'm sure they made a good amount in Game Pass, of course. Again, it's tough to know, Because Game Pass is so kind of like muddy in like the revenue it brings in, and you just don't know everything, right? So it's hard to make. And we talked about this even with like the Pal World situation. I don't want to go all in, accuse and condemn certain things if we just don't know, right? But clearly there's an issue, not just with Xbox, but in the gaming industry. Yes, our redundancy's part of it. They sure are. Our budget's part of it. I'm sure they also are. Our game's just too expensive. Well, that also is kind of budgets, right? Is it bad management? Do we need to have something where, I've seen like the stuff on Twitter too, where when you do a purchase, when you buy, because it just looks bad, right? I mentioned earlier like the market value or whatever for Microsoft being the number one in the world. It also just I don't care what actually happened. Well, I do, but it's a saying. But when you buy for almost 70 billion with a B, when you buy something like Activision Blizzard, and then just a little while, like the deal just technically, because you had the whole court situation, it went through. That just happened. And then you fire all of these people. So no matter the actual reason, no matter the actual specifics, it's going to look bad no matter what. And to an extent, I think there's a lot of validity in just kind of like the eye test there. Does that make sense? When you look at something like that, it's easy to say, what? Like you just spent an unbelievable amount of money, and losing 1,900 employees is not $70 billion, right? It's maybe, I mean, I don't even want to throw around numbers. I am good at math, but I don't know. What do you want to say? Maybe probably less than $1 billion. Can we say that to be absolutely safe? You're losing or you're gaining, I guess, from losing all these people, say $1 billion, and we'll be really generous with that, right? Well, you just spent like 70. You know what I mean? So, what I said earlier with like the market thing, well, that's Microsoft in general. Gaming is smaller, but you did just spend $70 billion on your gaming. On the gaming part of Microsoft, you just spent that amount of money, and then you have to lose all these people. And don't forget, Microsoft themselves was at 10,000. Remember, I think this was almost 2 years ago at this point. They were kind of early. They were one of the first really big ones. You see like Unity and Epic and all this stuff that they're laying off hundreds, if not thousands of people. Microsoft, the company, they laid off 10,000 people, and that was, I think, during the purchase of Activision Blizzard, but it was early on in this economic times that we're living in. So Microsoft has already cut, across the board. This is the Xbox part of it now that maybe survived, because I think the rumor was it didn't really affect Xbox, right? The huge cuts that Microsoft had a few years back, that wasn't Xbox, but now this is. Now this is single-handedly going after these things. You can argue pay cuts. Should people take pay cuts? Yeah, I'm always, I guess, for that. I would argue that, and this is like any industry, yes, would a CEO taking a 10, 15, $20 million pay cut be, good? Or maybe they reject their bonus one year. Yes, and I think that would keep some people around. Bottom line that I always look, and maybe it's controversial, how I always look at that is you would save some people for sure. You wouldn't have to have it as big. You would definitely still have to get rid of people because it's not the only thing. You know what I mean? It is an easy cop-out, and it has some truth to it. If a CEO rejects, say, $20 million, you can keep, name your number. You can keep a pretty good amount of people. Maybe you can keep 100 people, maybe 150, 200 people just with that amount of money. And then you have maybe several people doing it. Yeah, you might be able to keep 3, 4, 5, 600 people. Well, you'd still lose 1,300. It would still be a big number because it's not just about that. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's about, is it about budgets? Is it about the profit margin, which is still more business oriented, right? Is it about the redundancies in these job positions? Is it about, maybe you shouldn't have bought Activision Blizzard? What's the reason? Well, it could be a mix of those. And I don't think you can solve all that just by taking a pay cut. With a CEO. Again, it looks bad. Just the eye test. Seeing, and we don't know, say Phil Spencer, but just anybody high up, right? If they say make 7, 8, 9 million, or they get a $10 million bonus, it's yeah, that definitely doesn't look good right now, because if you just don't do that, and clearly you would be okay, at least for a year. If you reject your bonus one year, you took it the next year, I think you'd be okay. And you would have, say, 10 million or 5 million or 2 million or maybe 25 million, right? And you can maybe save some people's jobs. But the issue is a little bit deeper. That's not going to solve the entire issue. So, that's what, at the end, kind of a more throwaway type thing. sad day, sad day. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I hope that it slows. You know what I mean? I do think this year is going to be worse. I think we are easily going to surpass the amount of people that were fired last year. Easily. Maybe, I don't want to say double, but I mean, we're already, like I said, 60%, and you're only 1 month in. It might be 175 to 200, maybe 250%, in general, over last year. Not good. Definitely not good. And so hopefully it slows down. And I guess the pain has to keep going a little bit, and then it can stop. And eventually things will turn, unless the industry is just doomed. You know what I mean? Either the gaming industry is just going to completely, which I just don't think it's going to do that, completely fall apart and just be nothing. Or eventually you trim so much fats, as these, I guess, one way of looking at it, or you figure it out. You literally figure out, how can we make a lot of money, which is what we want, while also keeping people. That's the best harmony, right? Let's keep people employed. Let's give them money to live, and they will make us a lot of money. And once that is figured out, which clearly it's not yet, but it'll eventually, I do believe, get there, then it should be okay, generally. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.